Hosea chapter 9, rejoice not. You know, one of the stereotypes people have of Christians is that they're people who have no fun and they don't know what it's like to enjoy life. It's all a bunch of rules and it's just a terrible thing. The worst thing in the world is to be a Christian. And the world feels that the way they live, that's the place of real joy. It was interesting a few weeks ago when I was in England. I was coming back on the train on a Saturday night. Everyone had been out partying and hanging out with their friends. But you know, there really wasn't a lot of joy around me. Conversations, the attitudes, there seemed to be a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, a lot of emptiness. And you know, here in Hosea chapter 9 verse 1, God says to Israel, "Rejoice not, O Israel, for joy as other people." He tells them, don't be rejoicing. Now they were trying to rejoice. They had entered this new liberated society where they were free to indulge in all the practices of the world, from idolatry, drunkenness, partying, sexual freedom, put all that in quotation marks. They were enjoying all the excesses of the pagan nations who didn't care what God thought. So they thought they were having a good time, and they thought that they had reached this nirvana of utopia where everything was amazing, but it really wasn't. All was not free and good or joyful. As a matter of fact, their life apart from God would eventually be their downfall. There was no doubt pleasure in sin for a season, but eventually it would corrupt their joy. Now we see that in verse 1. It would corrupt their satisfaction. Verse 2, they would wind up hungry and empty. Their homes would be destroyed. Their worship of God was marred. Their prosperity and their glory. It's been said that sin will take you farther than you want to go and cost you far more than you want to pay. And sin does have a price tag. Pleasure in sin for a season, but eventually it will catch up. And God is saying, you know, right now you're rejoicing because you think you've made it. And you're loving this life of doing your own thing, but it's going to catch up to you. And you should be mourning rather than rejoicing, because eventually you will mourn. The worship of Baal, which involved all sorts of immoral practices to bring about the fertility of the land, which in an agricultural society was crucial to general prosperity, this Baal worship would eventually destroy all of their fertility. Verses 11 to 14, he talks about they would no longer be able to even have children. And verse 15, he says they would no longer have the love and protection of God, who like a husband would put away his wife. You know, so instead of prospering, they would dry up and bear no more fruit. They would wander among the nations, verses 16 and 17. And I can't help but see the similarities with mankind. We think that life without God and God's rules brings freedom and joy, but instead as we reject God, we end up empty and broken and fruitless. Real joy is found in God and seeking Him first. And I would challenge you, if you're in sin, don't rejoice. If you are living for God, then you have a lot to rejoice in. Praise Him for the freedom and the love and the acceptance and the joy that He puts in your heart. And let others see the joy of Jesus in you. God bless you.